Alright, what's going on guys? It's Almond. Welcome back to another Wizard101 video. In today's video, we're going to be talking about challenge mode Khonsu. Now, I really do want to talk about this video because a lot of people don't understand how the challenge mode works per se, because I mean, yes, I did stream it in course, but people didn't understand, like, hey, can you just only polymorph into Malice and that's it? Like, no, there's more things to this fight that meets the eye, and I feel like people need to realize it. So I do want to talk about that stuff. I'm not going to make a guide yet per se, because look, it is still test realm, and things can change. The fight is slightly buggy, I will admit to that. I will say that it is, because I mean, we'll explain all that stuff. But if you do enjoy this type of content, be sure to leave a like, subscribe, all type of stuff. Join Discord if you guys haven't. We're like close to getting like 900 members in Discord, and on top of that, I appreciate everyone that's been subscribing. I think within like the week and a half I've been like uploading videos or something like that, I've gained like 200 subscribers, which is really good for my channel. And I appreciate everyone that's been subscribing, like tuning into the streams and everything like that. I mean, we're close to hitting even 4K. I think we just hit like 3.9, so we're really close from hitting 4K, so hopefully we can hit that. And yeah, that's about it. So let's get into today's content, right? So challenge mode Khonsu versus regular. Now, regular Khonsu, it's way more easier. You can solo it, in my opinion, as well. The more people you have, the more like it takes a little bit longer, but like it's like it depends, right? So if you solo it by yourself, realistically you only have to just hit them once with like the gambited hit and stuff, and you can unpolymorph, go for mass feint, and or like just feint stack or blade stack, whatever, and then just kill them. Straightforward. If you have more people, each and individually, you guys have to do it. And then on top of that, at a certain threshold, he can start polymorphing as well. So he can polymorph into any of the arc bosses. So I've seen images flying around, right? Because in my fight he didn't polymorph for some reason, but I've seen people show images of him polymorph into like Malice there, Morgant, Old Cobb, Design. So like basically the boss of each arc, right? Because you know he's the moon god, right? He should be able to polymorph into multiple forms, multiple bosses, remnants of all that stuff, right? So that's the whole premise of standard. Now, realistically, standard is not hard, right? And it takes a little bit of time. I will admit, it does take a little bit of time, right? I think you even have to like kill him a whole bunch of times for the badge if you want to like be able to craft the gear. And I believe he requires like around 30 kills on standard. So, well, standard or challenge mode, right? Just 30 in total, right? So there's that. But when it comes to challenge mode, he doesn't polymorph into those bosses, because I feel like a lot of people thought that he would, right? He just polymorphs into those. He probably has higher health, and you know, you just play his rules. No, it's way more than that. So let's talk a little bit about challenge mode. So when it comes to challenge mode, he has way more HP, right? He has like around, I think like 80k or something like that, some dummy amount of HP. And when you like join the fight and stuff like that, I do want to premise, some people will say, or saying in my chat, can you just cantrip? Can you cantrip? Now look, I thought the same thing. Can I just cantrip spam? Can I just use cantrips on that fight and call it a day? And to answer that question, you can't. You can't cantrip in that dungeon at all. It says you're not allowed to do this in this dungeon. So you can't cantrip in the dungeon at all. So there's that. So with that in mind, let's also talk about the other stuff. He does have 80k. And you are getting polymorphed. Now you do have a set deck and everything like that when you join the fight, and you have to get him to half health, right? That's like the easy part. It was just like sitting there, cycling through all your cards and just trying to hit your gambit of your polymorph and essentially get him to 40k, right? Or just below, basically on like half health, right? And then after that, he can polymorph into one of the following bosses. He won't polymorph into the arc bosses. Instead, he can polymorph into raid bosses and some other fights. So he can polymorph into Hunhao. And if you've been along, like in the loop of Wiz stuff and how long people took to like defeat Hunhao, you understand how Hunhao is and how hard he is. If you don't manage the hanging effects on the field, and let's say he has one of every hanging effect, or there's another conditional of his meteor, if you reach those conditions, he will just one-shot you, He will do 100% of your HP and you die. So imagine getting to half health, spending like, 10-15 minutes trying to get him to half health, and then like 2 rounds later you just get nuked. Yeah, it's not that fun. So the people think that this is easy, it's not that easy, like on paper, like right off the rip. You do have to build a solid deck. I mean, it's very early, so people should expect that it's going to be hard. I know people will just wait for the deck setups and stuff like that and like a rough idea, and that's fair. But right now it's a little bit hard just because, dude, it's test round. So he can polymorph into Hanhao, right? So that's one thing. And the whole thing with Hanhao is like he doesn't do as much damage. Hanhao is just annoying, right? He just puts a lot of hanging effects on the field, and his whole gimmick is the meteor. If he achieves that meteor, you are dead. That's it. That's one of his forms. Another form, which I haven't experienced yet, but I've seen images and stuff like that, you can polymorph into Devour. Now, never would I have thought that they would make a fight, advanced content related, where Devour exists. The gimmick with Devour is one player can get devoured, and the other 3 members have to basically wait for that person to come out, do some damage, etc. All that stuff, right? So Devour is one of those annoying fights in the game that just I don't really do. I've only finished Catacombs on one of my characters because I was like, I don't want to do this fight again. I'm glad, honestly, another thing is I'm kind of glad this polymorph fight, side note, does not have any minions, right? I feel like if you polymorph into somebody and then summon minions, no. I'm glad it's just one single boss that you can polymorph and that's it. But yeah, if you know the whole spiel with Devour and you know one person gets like eaten, and then on top of that he does a lot of damage, so and on top of that you're having advanced combat cards, so Devour is kind of annoying. A lot of people understand how annoying Devour is, right? So there's that. And then another form that he can polymorph into is Daemon, right? With the recent release, I would still say it's recent, but with the recent release of the Kabbalist raid, or like the Polaris raid, however you want to go about it, right? The final boss that's on top of the whole fortress is the Kabbalist that you can fight, or you can fight Daemon, right? You have to kill both of them, right? But Daemon is the annoying one out of the 2, and Daemon has a cheat where he can one-shot you too, similar to Hanhao with Hanhao's meteor, where he does 100% of your HP. Daemon has a cheat where basically you can get nuked. Like in our run, one of our runs, it did like 16k. So I know that's on each and individual person. So those 2 fights, yeah. And on top of that, you just with Daemon, you have to be able to understand how his cheats work. Not everyone understands how his cheat works. Like even if you go on the wiki, it just tells you what his like cheats are, and that's it. It just literally says, hey, you can cast one of these spells and he'll do 6,666 damage. So if you don't know how Daemon really works, you're not gonna understand that challenge mode variant. On top of that, with Daemon is he has stack overflow. You can only have 4 of a kind. So like for example, you can't have more than 4 dots, you can't have more than like 4 traps, etc, right? So stack overflow is like an iconic cheat in the Polaris, right? Where it's like you got to understand how that works, you got to manage multiple hits depending on what you're doing, so many things, right? So if you don't understand Daemon, you will have a hard time, and if you don't have the hits to activate his traps, you're gonna have even more of a hard time. But I will say though, even though he's polymorphed into some of these bosses, right, they only have 30k or like 30 to 40k, depending on like how much damage you do and how well you manage your gambits and how you get around the cheat. He's gonna have like around that health, right? At least it's not their actual HP. Like Daemon's raid boss HP is like 96k. Malice's like HP, I believe it's like 82, like something around the 80s as well. Actually no, I'm not 82, he's 62, my bad. Yeah, he's like around 62k, right? So we're fighting like a lower health Malice, or we're fighting a lower health Daemon. I mean, Hanhao has some decent amount of HP too, but like still, you're fighting all these bosses at like lower HP. Same thing with Devour, right? And then the last boss, as I was saying, is like, yeah, you can turn into Malice. Now I didn't want Malice to come back. Realistically, I know everyone has their like own vendetta against each of these bosses, right? Some people don't like Daemon, some people don't like Hanhao, some people don't like Devour. My thing is, I don't like Malice. Malice is that fight where I feel like it's frustrating. It is frustrating. I'm on top of that. I've done all these bosses, right? I've done all these bosses. Devour less, but Hanhao, I've done that raid so many times, right? I've done Damon. I haven't been in the fight particularly in Damon. I've done it like twice, I think, in live realm, where I've actually been in the fight, but I've been more in the Cabalist fight. So Damon I have like a little bit less experience with, but I understand how the combat works. And then Malice is the one where it's like I've done a lot. I've helped people do standard quite a bunch. I've even done challenge mode 50 times. And then on top of that, I might have to do another 50 runs of challenge mode because I might start doing badges on my storm if I have time, where like I, collect badges and stuff like that. I see everyone else doing it, so I'm kind of like, it gives me something to do, right, on Wiz. So I might be one of the first like few people. There's probably like a couple people that have like 100 or plus challenge mode wins on like each individual one, but I'll have, if I do go through with that, I'll have 100 challenge mode Malice runs. I'm pretty sure I'm above 50 as well because I remember helping people in challenge mode as well. So that's a whole thing. But basically with Malice is like he spams mantles, like, and then on top of that, his cheats are random, right? Like, yes, Hunhao's cheats are random as well, where like he puts like random hanging effects, right? He has set cheats, random hanging effects type thing, because you don't know what cheat he's gonna do. With Malice, like he has that same premise where it's random, but like he can put a shield on himself like a -90, and on top of that you have to manage his aura, right? If you don't, if you kill him when he has his aura up, he's just gonna come back alive with full HP. And then yeah, he can either stun you, he can mantle you, and on top of that he can do E-free or monster mash, right? And you might be like wondering, oh, it's just E-free. Well, this E-free does a lot of damage, and on top of that it hits the person that has the lowest amount of HP. So if you are running a strat where you have a hitter that is a storm or like someone that doesn't have like the best HP, you're most likely going to get hit with an E-free. And the thing is, he can hit these cheats again and again. So if he does E-free round 1, he can do E-free again round 2, right? His cheats are completely random. So that's that. And on top of that, it could be it's a -90 E-free, so you have to cleanse that off. And on top of that, he does have access to monster mash, which honestly the monster mash isn't as bad. It depends on how you view it, but like it's not as bad as the other ones. What the monster mash does, it targets the person with the highest amount of HP. But keeping all that in mind, you can't even dispel this boss, you can't use negative charms, and you can't really shield either. Can't really shield in this fight, you're just not allowed to because he's fire myth. So good luck with doing that. And then he has like drop air, he has like all these other hits in his deck. So with all that in mind, I still think Malice is like the most annoying one. I did not expect him to bring back Malice. Cam, if you're watching this video, you're evil for that. But like it's understandable because this is the moon god, right? He should be able to polymorph into the hardest bosses in the game on challenge mode at least. Imagine if you were able to hunt How and like all this other stuff on standard. There would be a lot of people not happy, and I understand that. So there's that. So that's like a quick in-depth review of like how this fight works, right? You can polymorph into these raid bosses on top of like Devour and Malice, right? You might as well just consider them raid bosses at that point. But I'm surprised they didn't put Nullity in this one of his polymorphs, because they added Hunhao, they added Damon. Maybe there's like a reasoning behind that. But honestly, I feel like if they were to swap out one, I feel like you should, if you were gonna swap out one, take off Devour, right, and put in Nullity. That's what I would personally want. And some people saying that would just make the fight harder and stuff like that, but I feel like you can manage it pretty well, right? It's just understanding how the Nullity works and everything like that. But I feel like Devour was a no-go. I know some people are like, why don't you just take off Malice at that point? Like, if you hate Malice. Honestly, I'm okay with Malice to a certain extent, but at the same time, like, I'm just not. I don't know. I'm having mixed feelings about the boss, but at the same time, like the challenge mode requirements for this, like if you want to get the full badge, like yes, you can complete it once and you can get your challenge mode badge, but if you want the multiple kill one, it's only 15. Now, thankfully, it's not 50. Like the Nightmare dungeon is 50. Now, this is only 15. I feel like people should be okay with that. I'm okay with the randomness to a certain extent because Malice is 50. This is 15. I feel like people should be okay with it. I feel like they were kind of like a little bit more lenient on like the challenge mode badge requirements this time around. But like, you know, we still have like the taking tree. I believe he's like 40, I believe. If I remember checking in game, it was like 40. um so like, yeah, there are still like the high ones, but like there's still like Moon Knight and like you know, Khonsu that don't require as much for like the challenge mode badges, which I think that's how it should be. Now, I don't know if they're gonna go back and change like the challenge mode requirements for like the Nightmare Dungeon and like all these other ones from Wallaroo. I feel like it would be a good opportunity to do so, right? Because I don't know. I feel like there might be an argument of people saying like, no, they shouldn't change it. 50 is fine for malice and stuff like that. But I feel like if we're going based upon that argument, I feel like, you know, you're seeing how what they did with Selenopolis. I feel like you should mirror that with, you know, Wallaroo, and like adjust the badges for people. But it's up to them if they want to do that. That's just my opinion. I know some people would want to keep them at high, some people want to lower them, but in my opinion as a whole, I feel like they should just go back and adjust them. But regardless, I'll still do them even if it's 50, right? I just have to like prioritize time. Am I going to be doing it tomorrow? Am I going to do it the day after? No. Like, I have certain priorities like editing, and then on top of that, I do have my college work to do and everything like that. So there's some certain variables to like keep in mind. But that is it for this video, guys. I may have made it look easy in one video, but we did mess up a lot, and it did take a lot of time. And the thing is, we only won because his polymorph bugged out, and for some reason he like essentially unpolymorphed but still had his cheats, but he switched his deck to his Khonsu deck instead of the Malice deck. I feel like if he had his Malice deck, we would have most likely died, but since he was glitched out and he had his deck from his Khonsu for him, it was a little bit more bearable, a little bit more easier. But still, we only won with Edak having 100 HP. Like, what? And we were fizzling a crap ton. I mean, which, you know, later on, more attempts and stuff like that will make accuracy builds with, like, you know, just for setups and stuff like that. But it's, this whole boss is similar to TT challenge mode rematch, etc., because there's like a whole set forms and stuff like that, and trying to like manage that. So it gives like a whole bunch of inspiration behind that. But that is it for me, right? Hopefully that gives you a better understanding of how this challenge mode is. It's not easy on paper, right? It's not easy on paper. It takes a little bit of time understanding the bosses, so keep that in mind. But that is it. Leave a like, subscribe, all that type of stuff, and I will talk to you guys in the next one. Peace out, guys.